Okay. Hello and welcome to the Patty Pod. This is season 3. I think we're on episode 4. I haven't even checked now that I've switched formats. Welcome everybody. I hope everyone's having a good day. It is Sunday, January 19th. We are in the depths of it. We are going to be doing another interview again this week. This week's theme is creativity. And we're going to be joined in a little bit by my friend and family friend, Mike Savage. He's an author, a publisher. He does woodworking. He makes maple syrup. He does professional snow removal at times. He's worked, I think, on a logging truck. He's done a million different things and can do a million different things. He'll tell us more about some of the things that he does when he comes on. I won't want to shortchange him. But before we get to Mike, I want to just, I'm going to go to the essay corner. I'm going to go quickly so that we have enough time for the interview. So speaking of creativity, that's sort of my creative outlet, I would say, more than anything, is the essays. And I found myself writing one yesterday, and the title of the essay is Forcing Myself on People. I found myself struggling a bit lately as a transition to a new job has been difficult. A recovery acronym of HALT has come to mind. The H stands for hungry, the A stands for angry, the L stands for lonely, and the T stands for tired. You're supposed to not let yourself get too much of any one of those things. I focused on loneliness as I felt pretty good about the other areas. My wife Kate was out of town this week, which happened to be a difficult one. I did my best to not get too lonely, and one of the ways I did that was to sort of force myself on people. I don't have a lot of people in my life that like to talk on the phone, but I like to. And so I just started making phone calls. I was able to connect with my mom and dad, who are phone talkers, and with Kate. I also spoke to both my brothers. I tried to connect with a number of other people over the phone and on text, but didn't have too much luck. So I invited myself over to my brother and sister-in-laws to hang out with them and my niece and nephew. It was great to just hang out and watch football, and then all go to a public school gym to watch my niece play a spirited game of basketball. Her game seemed like a bit of an event, but even if we had just hung out at their house, it would have been quite the balm for my soul. There's something about just being in a space with people that you love that can feel so soothing and restorative. A lot of people that I message or call don't initiate messages or calls with me too often. It's funny because I have some other people in my life that do initiate messages or calls with me, but I'm just a little bit less inclined to reach out to them in moments like this. It can kind of feel like a love triangle where I want someone who wants someone else who in turn wants someone else as well. But I persist while being mindful of not pushing it too much. I know that if I do that, I'm not helping the relationship, to say the least. However, I've experienced that even when initiation is a little one-sided, when I kind of force myself on people, it can work out the best for everybody. A lot of times, all of us end up having more fun than we would have otherwise. That may seem like me telling myself what I want to hear, but the laughs, smiles, and hugs tell me that I'm right. Okay, so that was the essay. Let's now move to our guest, Mike Savage. Mike, welcome to the Patty Pod.
Well, thank you, Patrick. What should I call you, Patrick, as I always have, or are
You
you
can
Pat
call me
now?
Duluthians and northern Wisconsinites and northern Minnesotans can call me Pat if they would like, since that's how I grew up and that's how many people know me up there. So you can call me Pat or Patrick, whatever strikes your fancy.
All right. Well, if Patrick it is.
All right. So, Mike, why don't you just tell us a little bit? I listed some of the things that you've done in the course of your life, but if anything else you want to tell us so the audience can get a little bit of a better understanding of what you do from day to day?
Well, boy, it's a long list. I've been the jack of all trades and master of none in some ways. Like this morning, it was 22 below here without the wind chill.
Yeah.
And I was out helping a couple whose camper van was a diesel, and the diesel gelled, and so it wouldn't start. So trying to get heat under the engine and put in a propane heater and blah, blah, blah. So out
And
here
you,
in the boonies.
this happened in near Brule, Wisconsin, in northern
Right.
Wisconsin, right?
Yeah, that's right. So that's been my morning activity. So I get
Yeah,
out in the frosty air and get my exercise. And
yeah,
but as far as forcing myself upon people, I'm a very lucky person. I don't have to do that much because people always need something that I have. So I got a lot of stuff.
yeah,
And like this morning, the people needed a heater to put under the engine of their van, and I,
yeah,
of course, had one, and
yeah.
propane tank, and so I don't have a lot of loneliness. Actually, the opposite is true. I kind of have to carve out time for creative endeavors. Like I've been doing a lot of writing this winter, and
Yeah.
some publishing, some editing. I got a new gig as a Wisconsin correspondent for a business magazine, so
Oh,
I
interesting.
write 3 or 4 nonfiction articles a month,
Mm,
and a lot of calling people to try to get them to talk. And
mm,
in this day and age, you get ghosted a fair amount.
yeah,
You leave an email or send a text, and even finding a phone number anymore is pretty difficult. They don't list them online. They all have a form to fill out, and we will get back to you within 36 hours or whatever. But
yeah,
it's pretty hard to call people to interview them anymore. So
yeah.
a lot of my creativity involves digging up phone numbers and asking people for this, that, or another person's phone number. So
Interesting.
yeah,
Yeah, that is the theme this week is creativity, and it's interesting that you kind of conceive of it that broadly, not just, the arts, so to speak, but being creative in digging up somebody's phone number to contact them for an article on a business.
yeah. Well, the internet has got a lot of pages, and sometimes it gets pretty challenging to find an actual person to contact, and so. But as far as my broader creativity, I've spent my life. I'm 73 now, and I think I'm ahead of your dad. Am I not?
You guys are close. I think you're
Yeah,
behind me, actually.
yeah,
My mom's
yeah.
75, I know. I think my dad's 74.
Oh yeah. Well, anyway, the you know, I've had all kinds of great uh, experiences. I did a rod sled dog race 3 times for the Alaska Radio Network, and doing on the trail reports from through satellite phone, and correspondent for the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, and uh, just writing hundreds of articles for magazines, regionally and around the country. So it's been a
Yeah.
great ride. I I never was that suited to a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
I
yeah, that's interesting. I've just been struck. I'm going to go on a little bit to the theme, but I just want to take a quick segue. I was struck by a couple things. Um, you live in a very, not super remote, but pretty remote area. I've been to your home. It's an old farmhouse. It has a fair amount of land. The town itself is what, a couple 500 people, maybe? Or,
Yeah, maybe no, I think it's like 270 or something like that.
yeah, and here I am in Brooklyn, New York, in one of the most densely populated places, and I have trouble connecting with people at times. And you're in this, rural area, and you're getting
Yeah,
lots of contact with people. So
yeah, that is a very interesting contrast.
yeah. And the other thing that I thought of is that yeah, that your life and my life have been pretty different in terms of the 9 to 5, and I don't know what it is. I'm somebody that really likes the 9 to 5 in a way. I mean, I can hardly conceive of trying to put all the strings together if I didn't have a 9 to 5. So I try to kind of do stuff on the side on the evenings and weekends, but just another contrast. It's an interesting thing. Maybe I'll circle back to that because I am curious about how you kind of how that's operated for you. But I do kind of want to talk about creativity more per se. One of the things that you've done, I mean, I've known you for a while because you met my mom when you were teaching a writing class, I believe.
That's correct.
30 years ago or something like that.
Yeah, probably 40.
Yeah. And you've talked a bit about your nonfiction writing, your journalism, but you also have written, is it 8 or 9 murder mystery novels, the Dave DeVecchi series?
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know, writing them and publishing is a little bit different. I have published 9 DeVecchi books, and through my company Savage Press, and I published 210 books for authors other than myself.
Mm.
And so, but I one time a while back I counted how many books I've written, and it was around 80.
Wow.
But they're called trunk books, and they should stay in the trunk for a reason.
80 DeVecchi, are they all DeVecchi books?
No,
Detective DeVecchi?
no, like Summertime for Russell, and it was one that I remembered. And I have a tent revival trilogy based on my experience working at a tent revival in southern Minnesota.
Mm.
A
That's
couple of Alaska stories.
So yeah, something that I was very curious about. I was sitting here yesterday. Writing has been something that's been kind of therapeutic for me. I write these essays that I read on this podcast, and I kind of write other little bits. They're basically little mini essays. Sometimes they're like almost like stand up. Sometimes it's like just an observation. When you want to write, do you how do you is it seems to me I've seen you write about writing a little bit on social media, and it seems to me like when you're writing your novels that these characters and these stories are sort of coming to you. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it's fair to say. Early on, the fiction part was, kind of like therapeutic. I remember telling your mother once that, it's like barfing on paper.
Uh-huh.
And, for me, it was therapeutic. That's a great word to just get it out. And a lot of times my characters are expressing things that I don't feel like expressing to another human being. And
Mhm.
that's why they remain trunk books.
Mhm.
But, the fiction part is now anymore. It's a good habit. I wake up early and I get a cup of tea or have a piece of toast or something, and then I go right to writing. And my goal is 1,000 words a day,
Mhm.
and I can accomplish that pretty good easily. A lot of my nonfiction stuff is 900 to 1,200 words,
Mhm.
and so if I have an assignment from the editor, then I pound away at that.
Mhm.
And if I don't have an assignment on the docket, then I'll turn to fiction.
Mhm.
And lately, I've been experimenting with creative nonfiction, or as I think the new term is narrative nonfiction,
Mhm.
and working on a book about a fishing vessel that sank on Lake Superior. And
Oh,
so it,
that falls into that category.
yeah, that so and
So that means if there was an actual fishing boat that sank,
Yep.
you're gonna write.
Right. 1924, the Fryant sank in January 9th of 1924 with 7 men aboard, and they
You would,
survived. They survived the storm at sea, and it's a great story. So,
so you would
uh,
write it as kind of a story rather than a book of history. That's kind of the idea.
right, because one of the persons that I interviewed for the background is a local historian, and I said, Mark, the story of the Freon tells me that I'm hearing that the Jones boys from Cornucopia walked in on their own funeral. And he said, "Oh, that never happened." And so now I got to make up the best part of the story.
So I guess some of it's fiction, but there's some based on some historical facts.
Right. And if you read much about creative nonfiction or narrative nonfiction, your facts have to be rock solid.
Uh-huh.
So if somebody looks up the Fryant and the sinking of the Fryant, there's all kinds of data on the ship itself and the day that it sank and the conditions and the location. And I had to dig quite a bit to find out the exact location because
Mm.
it wasn't mentioned, but a local skin diver, deep sea diver, so to speak, had discovered the Friant, or Friant, as they say. And so I had a bit of a challenge to get a hold of him and find out the exact latitude and longitude.
Mm.
So, if somebody reads this book, if I ever do publish it, it will, they can put those coordinates in and see right the exact location where it sank.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, so
Kind of a
that's it.
common involvement.
Yeah.
And that's
So
that was that kind of why you would make that decision instead of just saying, "Hey, this is based on a true story."
yeah, it would just launched me into the drama of it all, and the strength of the men that endured they rode 20 miles through stormy Lake Superior water in an open skiff after the boat sank.
And
And
they got out alive.
yeah, they had to climb a cliff, they had to battle a snowstorm, they had to drive, take trains that were being delayed by the storms, and
Oh my.
yeah, so
So, what do you follow just your intuition? How do you decide when you are going to embark on something like that? I mean, obviously, if you get an assignment, that's pretty simple. Like, I got to do this. I'm sure you have a deadline. But if you're in between, is it, how do you decide, hey, I'm going to write a new DeVecchi book, or I'm going to follow up on the story that I heard about this boat sinking? How do you kind of, decide what to write about?
well, basically I just if I start, then I don't stop until I finish. And so you've read Pony Girl.
I have read Pony Girl.
I've rewritten that book 5, 6 times. I have a whole new draft that you haven't read.
Okay.
And, it's basically ready for publication. I've done all the serious editing line by line and punctuation, all that stuff. I've had readers like yourself, beta readers.
Yeah.
And so, that's sitting there waiting to go through into the publishing pipeline, so to speak.
Yeah.
But in terms of writing, I got interested in this Fryant story.
Yeah.
And so, that's just sitting there on hold. And I'm writing the Fryant story. And what motivates me is I enjoy the story. I get involved with the characters, and it's the pleasure and satisfaction of writing. I don't know if I'll ever publish Pony Girl because of my distracted personality.
Mm. Yeah,
But
let me just stop and tell my audience, I love all the DeVecchi books.
yeah,
I call DeVecchi the reflective detective.
nice. I haven't heard that yet.
Have I
So
not shared that with you?
I have not. That's great. I love it.
Oh, it's yeah, the reflective detective is the best way I can put it. To me,
Yeah,
what I love about this, or some of what I love about the stories is it's a murder mystery, which just there's sort of like that captures you just from the beginning.
yeah,
They have these high stakes, and you have this drama just built in. But that's not what there's a trillion murder mystery stories and movies and TV shows and podcasts. And it's the way that this character, goes through his life, really, but also, his work and, the sort of the anxiety that he feels and the hopelessness that he feels and the intrigue that is there and the moments of inspiration that he has, and there's a spirituality that he is sort of participates in, or is that he has in his life. And he sort of like I I think Aristotle said that tragedy was a way of humans like having a cathartic experience, because you could kind of experience this, something that maybe is overwhelming in your own imagination, but if you can see it play out in a drama, it's like you can sort of prepare yourself for it. And I kind of
yeah,
had a similar experience when I would read the DeVecchi, like, oh yeah, like I've had these moments of feeling like completely
yeah,
depressed and hopeless. And look, he laid down in a field in the woods, and this inspiration came to him, or this insight came to him, and didn't solve his problem, but got him to the next step. And that's what I
right.
mean by reflective detective.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. So I'm going to use that. A cute story about DeVecchi is that I sell them in a local gas station, And one of the ladies who works there said to me one day, "I'm not a big fan of Dave DeVecchi." And I said, "Why is that?" And he said, "Because there's no kissing." And DeVecchi is a pretty shy guy when it comes to women, so
Yeah,
I got a good response there. No kissing.
no kissing. You wanted it a little more blue,
Right,
the
right, right,
inventions.
right. Yeah,
Yeah, I know. I think there's a sort of a lightheartedness to the latest DeVecchis. I think the early ones were a little grittier. Uh,
yeah, right.
and I liked the change. There seemed to be a sort of lightness of spirit that maybe he's sort of, I don't know, as he gets older and is able to handle, the various vicissitudes of life
Yeah,
differently. But I thought Pony Girl was, maybe you had written it earlier. I think you had. It's almost like Batman when you went from the early Batmans where it was a little bit more tongue in cheek and a little bit more comic book, and then there was the Dark Knight where it took this
yep,
kind of dark and pretty emotional turn. Anyway, I felt there was something similar with Pony Girl, and it was just a real kind of it just gripped me. It was
yeah,
intense and gripping, and for somebody
yeah,
that's also gone down a spiritual path like myself and been a seeker and still am a seeker, I could really identify with some of that spiritual, some of the sort of spiritual moments that he was having. So, yeah, I thought it was
yeah,
fascinating.
yeah. Yeah, that's great. I'm real happy to hear that because reflective detective. I love that.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people who are drawn to writing. I think I have a friend who published a memoir, and you'll probably know this better almost than anyone as a publisher. I think the first thing that comes to people's minds are memoir, or autobiography, I guess. Um, then I think people probably think about novels too, but that seems, for at least in my own experience, it seems like I know my life. I can just tell my story. I don't have to invent anything. A novel seems much more daunting because I've got to think of a plot and I've got to come up with. I mean, the plot I think is probably the thing that's most daunting. Do you find that's true of other writers? Did you find that was true of yourself? How was your experience with that when you first started writing?
Well, yeah, I find that I've had both experiences. My first novel, Something in the Water, I wrote that in 7 days of pretty much nonstop writing, and but I had the story completely in my head already.
Hmm.
So I had to spend a lot of time thinking about the plot and the twists and the characters, and so when I actually started the narrative, it was just burning through it. And Pony Girl, when I first wrote that, I didn't have any clue. And so it got really long and it got super involved with lots of rabbit trails and, going down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And so that's why that book has taken me so long to refine
Mm.
because it turned into like, I think it was the first draft was 190,000 words. And, now the version that's about ready to get published is around 60.
Wow.
And but for if you just start in, what happened with Pony Girl was the characters started carrying me away, and I started liking some and hating others.
Mm.
And so when I was writing about the people I liked, it got long, and when the people I didn't like, I wasn't writing quite as long
You
stuff
mean
about them.
like you like them as like as if they were people, or do you mean you
Yeah,
like them as characters? You thought they were a compelling character?
yeah, they're like people to me.
Yeah. So people
You
you
know,
want to, when you say like, you mean like you'd want to hang out with them, not like, oh, from an analytical point, this is a good character.
right, right, and I'm curious about this imaginary slash real person.
Yeah.
What kind of what do I want to know about them? And
Yeah.
and this all goes on as I'm at the keyboard typing along, and I'm
Yeah.
having a conversation with them, and I'm discovering what their motivation is for why did they defraud that person, and why do they act the way they act? And so when you do it that way, it just gets longer and longer because I'm curious, and they answer me in my head.
They do.
Yeah.
Like
So
an actual conversation. You pose a question and they give you a response.
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So does that make me like psychotic or psychophantic? Can't
I've
even say it.
yeah. Well, even if it did, I would think it makes you gifted, talented, and I would say fortunate because
Yeah.
I have this. I've gotten the sense from you. I heard this, quote from Michelangelo that somebody asked him how he carves these angels and these sculptures, and he would say, "I don't. I set them free. They're
Ah, very nice.
they're in the block of marble, and
Yeah.
I chip all the excess away."
Wow, for nice. That's great.
And that seems like somewhat. I mean, from what you're saying, that seems very similar to your process.
Yeah. And
Which is,
I want to reflect back just briefly to your essay.
yeah,
I hardly ever get lonely when I'm writing.
yeah.
Because I'm chatting somebody up and they're telling me, they're revealing their secrets to me.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It must be like almost going into a different world, into a
Oh,
different.
it's very trance-like for me. I can usually I start writing about 4 in the morning.
Uh-huh.
You know, if I'm really into it, I can go till noon without a break.
Wow.
And a lot of times, you know, I would say my average is maybe a couple hours.
Hmm.
And so by 6 o'clock a.m., I'm ready for a break. I go to the bathroom, make some tea, get a piece of toast. If things are really cooking with the particular character or the scenario, then I would go back and wrap it up. But a lot of times I just have to. What did Elmore Leonard said? If you have writer's block, kill off a character.
Oh yeah, because they're not
So
talking to you.
yeah, yeah, and the reason they don't talk is because it's something that I don't want to deal with.
Hmm.
It's topic avoidance. If it's
Hmm.
in the terms of Pony Girl, you know, uh, abusing young women.
Hmm.
And sometimes I don't want to go there,
Hmm.
and so I switch gears to a different character,
Hmm.
and maybe it comes back, maybe it doesn't. And I've had readers complain to me that I leave subject matters or people hanging in midair halfway through.
Hmm.
Like I had a woman from Washburn say to me, "What happened to that damn fishing pole?"
Hmm.
And for me, I think I'm trusting my reader to accept the fact that some things in life just don't have closure.
Hmm.
So that's kind of anti Anton Chekhov, who said if you have the gun above the mantle in the first paragraph, it's got to go off by the end of the story.
Hmm.
So a lot of times, if the subject matter gets too hot for me emotionally or intellectually,
Yeah.
I'll just drop it and
Yeah.
move on with something else.
Yeah. Like even when you mentioned a new draft of Pony Girl, one of my first thoughts, even though I called it your magnum opus after I finished it, one of my first thoughts is I'm not sure if I'm emotionally ready to read it again.
Yeah.
Because it was I can understand if you were writing it that that need to walk away from such difficult topics.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting, Patrick, because one of my thoughts when I was rewriting it was, geez, I don't know if I can send this to Patrick or not because it's not, it doesn't have that same gut twisting. The rewrite. When I'm rewriting, I'm thinking a lot about market
Mm.
and who's going to read this. Who's my ideal reader?
Yeah.
Is this going to offend my friends?
Uh-huh.
It's like I have a book all written called "Raised by Savages,"
Uh-huh.
and I just can't publish it while my siblings are alive.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I understand that. I think somehow get it posthumously published,
yeah,
uh, direct, at somebody. Um, yeah, no, I guess that kind of leads me to another question. You're thinking about market. Is this something that is it a revenue thing for you where you're like, oh, if this doesn't sell, like I kind of need the money, or is it just like this is, I want to like keep my audience somewhat engaged because I want to have an audience? How does that work for you?
It isn't a money thing because if I don't publish them, that's fine. If I make a few dollars, that's okay. It's I think, what would Mary Brooks or Mary McGrath think about this?
Hmm.
So, I had a friend tell me once, how come your books are so full of swear words?
Hmm.
And I said, well, I'll write one that has no swear words in it.
Hmm.
And that was Death on the Brule River.
Hmm.
And so when I saw Margie the next time, I said, I finally wrote a book for you. There's no swear words in it.
Hmm.
So, in that regard, I'm, one of my driving forces is relationships.
Uh-huh.
So, I'm afraid of my brothers and sisters' reactions.
Uh-huh.
So I don't have to publish it, but I did have a lot of fun reading it. And that particular book was very therapeutic for me.
Interesting.
So,
Correct. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, regarding I think I can see maybe a difference between a book being written about real people that are, family members or friends, and maybe, about otherwise a stylistic choice that somebody doesn't like. Do you feel like do you kind of struggle with this that, oh, I'm bowing too much to my audience, or do you feel like you've found a kind of place where you feel comfortable with what your choices are?
Well, at first, it's what did the sports writer read? What's his name? He said, just sit down at a typewriter and open a vein. Those first drafts, I don't hold back
Yeah.
because I'm convinced that nobody's going to read them.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to rewriting, which a lot of people say writing is rewriting,
Hmm.
uh, then I'm much more tuned into you know personal reactions or market.
Mm.
And so the actual creativity part is what really buzz gives turns my crank, gives me a buzz, is writing with no holds barred. the
Yeah.
the rewriting is work. That's
Yeah.
more like writing a fiction article.
Yeah.
All of a sudden I'm a little bit detached.
Yeah. And you're correcting
So,
grammar and
right.
all that stuff. And
Yeah,
um, yeah, I read a book on creativity by the music producer Rick Rubin. Do you know Rick Rubin?
I do know the name. Yeah,
Yeah, he did a lot of like early hip hop stuff and some heavy metal and rock, and he's considered, this guru. And one of the like key points in that, or sort of a kind of a maxim that came out of it, was the audience comes last.
yeah, that's great. I like that.
Yeah, and that really stood out, I think, to a lot of people. He works with a lot of people that have been have sort of fallen out of their creative hot spots. Like he worked with Johnny Cash towards the end of Johnny Cash's career, and
Yeah, I remember that.
they did this acoustic album that was very, big departure from what Johnny had done. And he kind of he's got a million things to say about creativity in the book, but that's one of them. And I've doing this podcast, I've thought to myself, okay, exactly. I mean, it sort of seemed almost preposterous, the concept of the podcast, where it was just me telling different, like essentially reading different non-connected essays. There was one podcast that from a guy in Minnesota, that I had listened to. I got sick with COVID, and I was listening to it, and he did it, and I thought, oh, this is great. This is kind of Seinfeldian. Like, there's not like a central theme. He's just bouncing from topic to topic.
Yeah,
And so that kind of drove me. I was like, well, who cares? This is obviously just a hobby. Like, maybe nobody listens, but I just sort of felt compelled. And then, so when I read that, I thought, yeah, the audience comes last. Like, what's the point of this whole thing? It's got to be for me to start with. And
right.
people like it. If it resonates with people, then they'll like it. But if I'm just trying to be, if I'm trying to be anybody else, if I'm trying to be Joe Rogan, or even this guy in Minnesota, his name is a King. I'm forgetting his first name. I'm just going to be like the poor man's version of that, right? So,
Yeah, yeah, yep,
but I also reflected on it that he didn't say the audience doesn't matter. He said
right,
the audience comes last.
yep,
So,
yeah,
and that's important too. I think
right,
like otherwise I can just write a diary, right?
yeah, yeah.
And so I was going to ask you about that. Does it like were you ever at a point in your life where you felt frustrated that you couldn't do maybe just the creative thing for your full-time job? And how did you kind of work through that? Or did you ever work through it, or did you never think about it? How did that work for you?
Yeah, there was a lot of my job experiences were the direct result of realizing that poetry is not going to pave the way.
Yeah,
And so, you got to have money, you got to have income, you got to pay the bills.
yeah,
And so, you know, when I was, there were times when I was disillusioned with the amount of income I was making from writing. And
yeah.
so then I would hop to a job, or I would take a job that was remunerative. And so, yeah, that's not so much a struggle anymore because I'm kind of settled into a groove. But
Yeah.
early on, it was, the rubber band effect. So you
Where you just,
go from creativity to productivity and then back again. Because, like I
yeah,
said, I never was really one for 9 to 5, and I would endure it as long as I could and got enough money to pay the bills or whatever, or I felt secure enough to leave. And so then I would go back to creative endeavors. And so, yeah, I winged and wanged around a lot of, truck driving and radio broadcasting and logging and mechanic work and, just tons of stuff.
and was that just something that you learned to accept, or how did you, yeah, did you learn to accept that, or was it something that you sort of begrudgingly just went day to day with?
Yeah, when I was 18, I had a strong Christian conversion.
Mm-hmm.
And prior to that, my life was pretty messed up.
Mm.
And so, when my faith became really alive for me, I quickly came to understand that it was, the world is not that big a deal.
Mm.
So, just take what the Lord brings me on a daily basis and
Mm.
make the best decision I can about it. And, that led me to the tent revival experience, and that led me to Alaska. And, it's, because of the place I live, I think in the northern Wisconsin boonies here, at least my personal experience was that I didn't feel a lot of pressure to excel or achieve financially.
Mm. Mike, let me
So,
just put you on hold for 1 second because this recording is going to stop. But we'll just take a quick break and